back in time for the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, I planned it specifically around that.
Oh, yes, back.
My daughter, how old is your daughter? 37.
Okay.
She won this trip, or she won
Oh, wow.
money to put towards a trip. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm
Just the two of us.
So nice.
Yeah.
So where did you live?
Tuscany and Sicily.
Okay.
I've never been to Sicily. I went to school there for a year. In my 21st birthday, so that was a long time ago. But we're gonna do a little bit differently. We're just gonna hit Florence and Rome, just kind of walk through. We're gonna stay in Tuscany for 4 days and Sicily for 4 days.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I like ruins.
Right. So you don't know.
He's probably had a very
I've never been to Italy, but it's on my to-do list. Well, I guess, you know, sometimes.
Yeah, because like she was
I
doing computers
did.
assignments and like running it, and I had never seen something that wasn't confused before, which is what you did, right? I would have been like,
What?
where is everything? There's only 3 lines. I don't know how. Are you doing it now? And you like it? Oh, yeah, you said there's only. Oh, all sometimes? Oh. Other people had a hard time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. Great to see some folks both from our campus and then those who have visited us from the community. And then hopefully those of us, oh no, who am I waving to? Those of us that are streaming online as well. We're really excited to be here today to tell you about a project that we've been working on for, well, 18 months or 4 years, depending on which aspect of the project that you look at. My name's Amanda Nickerson. I'm the director of the Alberti Center for Bullying Abuse Prevention here at University of Buffalo. And I want to thank and call out Dan Albertson, who is a co-PI on this grant, who's in back there from Department of Information Science. And also Bree Kishel, our program and operations manager, who's been very involved in the project. Dr. Katie Allen is the one that's going to be doing the presentation today, and we're really glad to have her here. Dr. Allen has her PhD in Education and Human Development from the University of Rochester, and she is the Training and Evaluation Specialist for our center. So she does a lot of work with schools and the community on child safety, bullying prevention, social emotional learning efforts, and prevention of abuse of individuals with disabilities. So I think you'll be delighted to hear from her. She also does our Dignity for All Students Act face-to-face training. So some of you and or your students are probably familiar with her in that way. So without further ado, I will hand it over to her.
Thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
So welcome, everybody. So this is kind of an agenda, or at least a description of the flow of how this presentation will go this morning. I'll start out with some background. There was a previous project that we did with DDPC. I'll tell you about that because it is linked to the current one that we're finishing up right now. I'll go through the history of the work that we did in developing the website. I will show you a video of the tour of the website, and then we'll go into the website and I'll take you to some of the resources that we have pulled together in this project. And certainly you can ask questions along the way. I will also talk to you about some of the issues that have arisen that remain to be addressed as we get ready to hand this website off to the New York State DDPC. So in 2013, as Amanda alluded to, we did a project with the DDPC. They contacted us and they wanted some help with the problem, learning about the problem of bullying and people with developmental disabilities. And they are an organization, as some of you may or may not know. They get federal funding, and they can award that funding to accomplish various projects. Every state has a developmental disabilities planning council. They operate autonomously, they can choose to do whatever they want. And apparently their boards had been talking about the issue of bullying of people with developmental disabilities, and they wanted information to help them make some plans for long-range projects, ways to use their resources. So we did that project, Amanda and myself and Jillian Worth, who was a doctoral student at that time, in addition to these other folks, helped with that project. What we did was we started with an extensive literature review. We found some work on bullying and people with developmental disabilities, but not as much as we had hoped for. So we developed kind of a mixed methods approach. We put together a survey that we gave to people mostly online. We had 350 people respond to that. We did focus groups and interviews around the state. I went to Manhattan during the season of thunderstorms and got stuck in Rochester and Buffalo, and I needed to be in Manhattan, but we worked all that out. I had all the AV equipment with me. It was so I had one of my daughters throw me back and forth between Rochester and Buffalo a couple times, once in the middle of the night. So anyways, I got there, we did focus groups in Albany, in Manhattan, we went to Olean, we did some in Rochester. And then when we didn't have enough people for a focus group, I did interviews with other people as well. So what we learned from that, in the survey, the people that answered the survey were people with disabilities, their families, their caregivers, policymakers, people that work for government agencies that support people with disabilities. And this is what we learned from that first survey, that most of the bullying that people with disabilities experience is verbal or relational. We learned that they're socially vulnerable, they tend to be naive and are easily duped. So, somebody might pretend to be a friend but really isn't a friend. In the survey, they seem to express that the reason for being bullied was because they were different. They were somehow different from other people. We asked them about the effects of bullying, and these were some of the responses they gave us, that it makes them feel sad and angry, and it also makes it difficult to make friends, and that it affected their sleeping patterns. We asked about coping mechanisms, and they try to minimize it and ignore it. They try to problem solve, and they tend more to internalize, ruminate, become anxious, and so forth. And what we also learned was that what they desperately would like to have is strong self-advocacy skills and support from within and outside their community. And that would, in essence, become prevention and intervention for them. We did kind of a grounded theory analysis of the focus groups, and 4 major themes came out of what people said to us in the focus groups. That in order to address the problem of bullying, people with disabilities need to be self-empowered. They need to be able to stand up for themselves. They need to be able to be assertive. They need to be able to call on people to support them in situations that involve bullying. They also need to continue to develop self-advocacy skills. As I've gone around the state doing presentations and evaluation groups with our current project, some people say, yeah, there are a lot of people who have good self-advocacy skills, but there's a lot of people who do not. And that continues to be a strong need when it comes to the problem of bullying. They need support. And lastly, there was a lot of discussion of if only society would change, if people could see people with disabilities as equal members of society, if they were included, the whole problem of bullying would diminish because people wouldn't be viewed as different. So these were the 4 themes that came out of the work that we did. So following our lovely report, which I have a copy of over here, to the DDPC in 2014, they issued an RFP for a project. And this project involved the development of a website that included resources on abuse, bullying, and exploitation of people with developmental disabilities. And it started officially April 1st in 2018, but I think we were working on it January, February, and March. And it ends in about 2 weeks. Amanda and I and Dan, Bree, we're all here. We have worked on this project. Maggie is here. She also supported us. And we had 2 wonderful doctoral students, Dave Maurer and Courtney Doxbeck. And Dave was the man who wrote the code, the computer code for the whole website. And I have no idea how many hours he put into this, but it was extensive. And Courtney worked with Amanda, Bree, and I with regards to resources and we looked at content that needed to be included. So this is who the current project team was. So originally, these were some of the goals that we hoped to accomplish. We knew that people with disabilities needed education, so we thought this would be a platform where people could access information. And it would be done through links and resources and tools, and it would help people with disabilities increase knowledge and build their skills when it comes to dealing with issues around abuse, bullying, and exploitation. We, early in our work on this project, found out that a lot of people with disabilities don't know how to use the internet, and so we wondered if, in fact, maybe we shouldn't include some sort of a training video or mechanism to help them understand how to use the website. We also wanted to create a peer-to-peer support system. One of the things we had learned in our first project was that particularly in focus groups where everybody in the focus group was a person with some kind of a disability, a tremendous sense of camaraderie developed in the course of the conversation. We used a kind of a semi-structured protocol, but the questioning went and the discussion often went in various directions. And it was apparent to us in several of these focus groups that this was a very unique and positive experience for the people who participated in those focus groups. Rarely have they ever been able to talk about the issue of bullying, and particularly with sympathetic peers. So we could see the need for this, for a place or a space where these folks could talk to each other. And so we hoped that that would also become a part of this project. And we initially thought that that our website would become a repository of all of these resources. So that's where we started out. And like many research projects, things changed a little bit as we went through this whole process. So we ended up with 3 major goals. Increase the ability of people with disabilities to prevent and respond to bullying in safe ways, increase supports, and increase awareness. So we because we found that some of the things we wanted to accomplish had some significant challenges, and I'll talk about those later on. So this is a picture that's on our website. That's the homepage of our website. And one of the questions that comes up frequently is, well, who is this for? Because people sit down and they look at the website and they're like, well, I'm really not quite sure who's going to use this and how are they going to use it? So first and foremost, it's for people with disabilities. It's for their families and family members who often themselves need support and help getting information. It's for the people who take care of people with disabilities. It's for educators, people who educate people with disabilities. It's for employers who employ them. And it can be for policymakers and just about any concerned citizen. And as you can see, that's a huge, very broad audience. And making it work for everybody in all of those spheres is a challenge. So we broke this project into 3 phases. Because the whole thing was kind of amorphous and it was difficult to get a handle on. So we're at the end of phase 3 right now, which is dissemination and training and promoting awareness. The website is basically finished in terms of construction. There's a little bit more, I think, tweaking to do, but we're at the point where we've finished evaluation, we've finished usability testing and so forth. Because in the beginning, one of the things we did was just talk to people a lot, because we had to create in our mind a vision of what it was that we needed to create based on what people's needs were. In phase 1, Courtney sat down, I started it, I think Maggie continued it, and Courtney spent a lot of time looking for resources online. And Dave developed a website prototype, and like I said, we just talked to people, lots of people. We've been to DD Day twice, this year and last year, with this project. A year ago, this month, I was at the New York State SANUS conference, and I presented there. So we've been kind of all over the state as much as we possibly can. In phase 2, Dan and Dave went to Utah, I think? Utah? And they took a program called Web AIM Training. And the content that they worked with in this training was how to make web pages accessible to as many people as possible. So they came away with boundaries and parameters and expectations, kind of, if you need to make the font a certain size, you can only have so many kinds of fonts. You need colors that contrast. You need the ability to do screen reading for people who are blind. You need to have alt text when a mouse hovers over a photograph or an illustration, so that if a person's blind, they can hear a description of what is visually located there. So a lot of that kind of information about making websites accessible. Dave continued to work on the website development, and Courtney sat down and we started taking on the task of sorting all the resources, because there's all kinds of things out there. And we also tested the site's usability and its accessibility. We had the help of from a colleague of Dan's in Alabama. She was teaching a class on computers and website usability, and so she had some groups of students who took our website and did some work with it. So we tested it out basically with his students, but also with a number of people with disabilities and people who work with them to see, could they find certain information. We gave them a task and observed how long it took them to find a particular video or a particular resource that was part of the website. And we kept on talking to people. So as I said, we're in phase 3. The construction is almost done. Probably we're about to hang the bow on the front door of the website, and we'll talk about what comes next. We've done dissemination evaluating, we've offered training to people. This week alone, I did a presentation at an independent living center in Poughkeepsie, and then I went to a self-advocate group in Rochester, and I have one more to do in Dunkirk. So we're still in this process of exposing people to it and promoting awareness. The resources that we collected, we had videos, we had things like webinars where there might be a slideshow and audio, there might be a radio program with a script. NPR did a wonderful expose on sexual abuse and people with disabilities. And so we've linked that into our website. There are lots of websites for people, so we have links to those. We have articles. There are blogs that people write themselves, or there are chat rooms where people can go and talk to like peers and discuss these issues. And then there's fact sheets and tip sheets, kind of like, synthesized information. So those are the categories basically of media and how we sorted them out. And then at the very end, we needed a logo and we needed a URL. So the login is www.end-abuse.org, and that's our logo. And we spent a lot of time with that as well. Okay, so I'm going to play a video for you that was created by Dave Maurer, our tech man, and this will eventually be uploaded onto the website, and it basically explores the website and tells people how it works. So I'll let you watch that. Hopefully it's still here on my computer.
And feel free if you'd like to visit the website, so if we see you on your phones or your laptops, we're gonna assume that that's what you're doing is browsing. We don't often give permission for that, but do feel free to visit it.
And, you know, one of the tasks that Dave had to do in terms of writing the code for this was make sure that it could be downloaded onto a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop. So I have no idea what's involved, but I think it took a lot of time and effort to accomplish that. So this is the most recent video that he made and sent to us. So we'll watch
This is the end abuse video walkthrough. So right now I'm in a web browser and I'm going to access the site by typing in the address bar end-abuse.org, pressing enter on the keyboard, and it will take me to my website. So right now you'll see this little survey offer on the landing page, and I can take the survey if I choose to, or I can close out of this window. Now I'll do a brief walkthrough of the front page, and then I'll go into the resources section right here. So on the front page, you'll notice I have my logo at the very top left. I have my DDPC. This is a link to the DDPC website. I have a little resources drop-down menu that'll take me to the rest of the website. I have a little search button, and I have a Get Help Now button, and I have a language translator. So let's scroll down. Now you can see that from the main page right here, you can access most of the website just from these 4 menu buttons right here. So I can either click on this button or I can click on this title, and this will link me to either this one page, this Get Help Now page. Same with the other 3 buttons and the other 3 links: forms of abuse, targets of abuse, support and advocacy, and then we also have this little assistive and accessible technology section.
Well, let's see if I can go back. Oops, you can't do that. All right, well, I guess that's all we're gonna look at from that. I'll finish giving you the tour myself. Okay, so scrolling down, we essentially organized information into really four content areas: getting help, and then information on the forms of abuse, who gets abused, and support and advocacy and assistive technology. So so let's, and then we have a bar down at the bottom, the was like a footnote, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but anyways, where you can also log on to various things. Let's start with Get Help Now, and I'll show you whether you click on this section of the webpage or you click on Get Help Now, it should take you to the same place. So each one of these segments is laid out the same by way of clicks and photographs and so forth. There's a bar here that says call 911 if you're in immediate danger. So we look for hotlines and various places where people could call. Some of these are state and some of them are national. And although this is for people in New York State, we gathered resources from a lot of places. One of them is the United Kingdom and Australia. They have quite a bit of good information online. So I may even show you one of their videos. So they can either talk on the phone, they can text, or they can go to a website. Okay, so these are the ways to get help. So I can go back and look at what kinds of abuse there is. And this is broken into 5 content areas: physical abuse, neglect and exploitation, verbal and psychological, cyber and online, and sexual abuse. So in each one of these major categories, if you click on, let's say I click on physical abuse, all of the resources are organized as I described before: video and audio, websites, articles, blogs, or chat rooms, and fact sheets. So it's the same in every single section. And then these are all active links. One of the things that we thought we would be able to do in the beginning was make our website a repository for all of these resources, but that's not how it ended up being. What we've done is we've created the links in our website that take people out of our website to find the resources. So let me just go back and finish the tour, and then we'll look at some resources. Who gets abused? Again, and this time there's 3 categories: elders, children, and then this is a combination of where people get abused and how they get abused. So this might be domestic, home, where people live, where people work. Okay, and again, if you click on this, we have the resources divided into 5 different categories. We also included a section on supports and support the advocacy, because that was such a strong theme and much of what we learned from folks when we were doing our first project. So here we have prevention and advocacy, and we have, again, the same 5 categories. So let's, I'm gonna go back to the beginning and look at some of the resources that we've included. And we'll start with the what, and let's see, we'll go to physical. And there is a fact sheet that was designed by and for people with disabilities, and it's this one right here: Say No to Abuse, Easy Read Guide. Let's go out. There we go. So the people that are featured in this, the photographs are people with disabilities. There's little text on the page. It's large font. So Say No to Abuse, and here's the Easy Read Guide. You could print this out. It was put together by a group called Symbols for Life. Abuse is wrong, say no to abuse. There's lots of different kinds of abuse. Emotional, I hate you saying mean things. Abuse that is discriminatory. And there's neglect, depriving people of medical care, help with hygiene, food, and so forth. There's financial abuse. So this is a sample of something that's made available, and some group put it together, and we found it and thought that it was a useful tool. One of the things we also discovered when we took our show on the road basically was that people with disabilities more often than not prefer audio and visual. They're not particularly in it to read articles. Some of for example, I'll just throw something out here. Depending upon how much text there is and how difficult or dense the text might be, individuals might not be interested in reading. So let's see. I'm going to go up to sexual abuse and show you a video clip. All right. And this is a news report, and it's an interview with the mom. A lot of these are on YouTube.
Hi, my name is Deborah Dilley, and I am with the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and I'd really like to thank the Utah Parent Center for having me come out to talk about this topic. This presentation I call The Hidden Victim, Abuse of People with Disabilities.
Sorry, that's not the one I want. Sexual assault. Victims of sexual assault, no one talks about. Let's try this one.
Abuse is a silent epidemic. We are all human beings and we all have a right to live a life without abuse and without someone having power and control over us. There are different forms of abuse, like financial, physical, psychological, sexual, domestic. And people with disabilities need to work together to educate each other to protect ourselves from abuse. Because people who are abused don't want to talk about it. The abusers make the person who's being abused be quiet and not report to the authorities, and the cycle keeps going on. People don't always have the words to express what happened to them. We all need to learn how to report abuse to authorities. Some of the action steps that I myself am taking, I'm using social media like Facebook, Twitter, self-advocacy groups, board of directors, safety councils, writing and emailing and educating our state legislators to have tougher laws about abuse. I'm writing blogs and editorials and doing community presentations, working with self-advocacy groups to talk about abuse of vulnerable individuals and how it can be stopped. Share your experience and what you did to prevent abuse for yourself or your peers with disabilities. And share this video with everyone in your network so we can get the word out and improve the lives of all people with disability, and those who are being abused will have it stop and live more healthy and happy lives. And most important, we must work together to protect each other. Our voices and through our actions will end this critical problem.
Okay, so there's an example of a video that's information-based, that's put together by people with disabilities. You can see how strong they are as self-advocates for themselves and for people that like themselves. And I think that's very empowering. I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of challenges and moving forward. I know where that one is. Well, this is a really good one. I think it's still here. Maybe it's on, let's go to this one. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. This is a news report. This is from the cyberbullying section.
Trouble hearing? Don't skip this video. If you're suffering from premature hearing loss, the struggle could soon be over. Thanks to recent technological...
Start with a disturbing story out of Howard County. A middle school student is the victim of a sexual cyberbullying attack. In an exclusive interview tonight, we hear about the impact this cruel act had on that girl and her family. Here's Janice Park with their story.
I want him to know that my daughter struggles every day to do basic things, like breathe, like walk, like eat. And she did not need this on top of everything else.
A Howard County family says they are still reeling from the actions of an 8th grader at Folly Quarter Middle School. The parents of a young girl who say their daughter is severely disabled both intellectually and physically claims a fellow student superimposed their daughter's face on a naked woman having sex. A video the student allegedly got from the site Pornhub. The family says for months, the video was circulated to others using Snapchat. It wasn't until 2 students spoke up and informed the school about what was going on.
It's clear that we're with the right people at the right time, working towards a resolution. for this case, but also trying to affect change for students in the community at large.
The parents met with Howard County Superintendent today after mounting a social media campaign to get the school district to take a harder look at bullying policies after they say the student only got a 2-day suspension. Howard County Public Schools has a policy where all bullying and cyberbullying has to be reported to the board and superintendent every quarter. But the parents tonight upset the police were never called.
Voices of those who have no voices, right? We have to communicate for those who cannot communicate. We have to tell stories for those who cannot tell their own stories. And those kids could have done that for my daughter.
In Ellicott City, Janice Park, WUSA 9.
Howard County Police are investigating a report made to them by the girl's parents on March 22nd. They say this case is under investigation. We're told the school principal plans to...
There's another video that is really a good one. Let's see, it is under what? And it's under physical.
Hi, I am Lauren Potter. You might know me as Becky Jackson on the TV series Glee. This is my mom, Robin.
And we are joining AbilityPath.org to disable bullying. When you first meet Lauren, you may just see her disability, but it is not what defines her. Growing up, Lauren was unfortunately reminded of her differences because of mean-spirited jokes, pranks, and name-calling. The fact is, kids with special needs are more likely to be bullied than any other students.
That's just not okay, but it happens every day. My mom and I are taking action to disable bullying. Will you?
Lauren and I are proud to be partnering with AbilityPath.org so our kids go from being statistics to being a part of the solution. There is something we can all do to say, enough is enough.
Let's give kids with special needs a voice.
Visit www.abilitypath.org to learn ways you can speak out to disable bullying.
Some of the videos are instructional. Let's see, this is under physical. This is a video that we'll look at maybe about 3 minutes of it, and it's an introduction, but the purpose of it is to help people with disabilities understand when they're being abused or when they're being exploited and to help them understand.
As a provider and caregiver, we understand that it's difficult, but we are.
I'll go back to
Very few people go into disability services because we want to be confronted with abuse. We don't want to believe that anyone we care about is experiencing abuse. It can be even harder to accept that someone we know and like could be a perpetrator. But every major study has found that people with disabilities are more likely to experience abuse than people without disabilities. Denying the problem won't make it go away. We all have to be proactive. Hi, my name is Meg Stone. I'm the Director of Impactability. Impactability is a program that empowers people with disabilities and communities to prevent abuse. We do this by teaching people with disabilities the skills to protect and advocate for themselves, and also by working with organizations that serve people with disabilities to ensure that when people report abuse incidents, they're handled well, and also to prevent abuse. This is my colleague Keith Jones. He is a nationally recognized disability rights activist and speaker.
Hello. I understand as a person with a disability how difficult it is to report abuse. Oftentimes when we do report, whether it be to our caseworker or friends or family, people often don't believe us. Because maybe because of our disability, we misunderstood what was happening. We didn't recognize that they were just being helpful. Sometimes it is very subtle and very hard to recognize. Oftentimes it's very obvious. But as a person with a disability, we want to be believed. And so when people don't believe us because of our disability, it makes reporting abuse that much more difficult. So in this video, we hope that when you see the scenarios, it will give you a chance to recognize the challenges we face in reporting abuse.
Working with people with disabilities can be incredibly challenging and often underappreciated. And we know that for many people, it's the unique personal relationships that people develop with the folks that they care about that really makes our jobs fulfilling. In thinking about abuse prevention, we don't want to be overly cautious. We don't want to take the fun or the spontaneity out of the work that we do. But at the same time, we really want to realize that abuse is perpetrated in some of those close personal relationships that we so often value. So we have to be careful about what constitutes abuse and what it looks like in actuality.
And as a provider and caregiver, we understand that it's difficult, but we also need to know how to recognize abuse when it happens. And the following scene will give you an example of what happens in a workplace setting.
So from this
So what do you guys do this weekend?
Oh, we went dancing, and then there was a big frisbee game.
Oh yeah?
You got to come dancing with us.
Do I dance?
So from that point on, it's instructional, and that would be a good video to use with a group of self-advocates who are adults. Most of them have to do either with group homes or the workplace, and so it would be instructive in recognizing and then being able to report. So that's a pretty long video. Let's see, there's one other one that has some interesting components to it. Online and its websites. Nope. Oh, it was sexual. Nope, let's see. Cyber and online. I think this is a fact sheet. Hang on, sorry. Can't remember. Articles, blogs, websites. Oh, here it is, this one. So this is actually an article, but there are videos and other resources embedded within it. One of the tools that I think that's very helpful and useful is this particular leaflet. It was designed by people with disabilities. I'll kind of scoot out a little bit so you can see this. So this is an example of a leaflet, a fact sheet, a handout of some kind. And this goes over information on cyberbullying. I think it's appealing, it's colorful, it has fairly large text, and it gives a lot of advice. You know, make sure you have good privacy settings, make sure you change your password, make sure you block anybody who's harassing you or abusing you, don't share private information or photos and so forth. So this is an example of a resource. Now, based on that same the same organization, they have put together a video, which I think is also nicely done.
What is Skype? Skype is a great way to stay in contact with friends and family near or far. Skype is fun, but you must be safe on Skype.
When I get a Skype, I'm going to talk to my friends, my family, and colleagues from overseas. Before you sign up to Skype, to read the terms and conditions to see if you are legally old enough to have an account. I do want to make sure I'm safe when I use Skype. If a young person wants Skype, it is advisable to let your parents or carers go through the setup with you so they can make you as safe as possible. You must always check your privacy settings. On the internet, you must keep your passwords safe. Make your passwords hard to guess. When you are creating your password, it is recommended you use a capital letter and
So that gives you a sense of what we've been able to pull together. Let's see. Let me take you back to the website. Okay, so there's one other resource that I want to show you, and this goes to the issue of helping people with disabilities connect with one another to receive and give peer support. So we found that there were 3 chat rooms or 3 places where people could talk to one another. And this one, I went online and I introduced myself as a researcher and said that I was curious to see how it worked and that I had some questions. So one of the things that we had to grapple with in the very beginning, we wanted to create our own chat room that was housed right in this website. But we read about it and we talked to people, and one of the issues that comes up very frequently in any kind of a chat room is bad behavior. And chat rooms that seem to be successful have monitors 24/7. So, you know, if somebody is saying nasty things or behaving inappropriately, they can be, you know, blocked out of it. So one of the questions I asked, once I got in, I got a screen name and I went in and I said, what makes your chat, this one is 22 years old. And I said, well, what makes this successful? And they said, we enforce the rules. We have very strict rules about, how people are supposed to behave. So they have these chat room rules, be nice, don't lie, no dating, no children, no advertising, no criminal activity. And then they also have a safety guide, things that people should not do. And then they go into some of the issues around etiquette as well. And then, so that plus the fact that they have somebody always in the chat room who is, got a pulse on what's going on in there has made this successful. So we realized that we didn't have the resources to create our own chat room. So in fact, we, found ones that were already in existence. So, okay, so that's just a small number of the resources that we have linked into, I guess I would say linked into our the website. So what I'd like to do is talk about some of the challenges that we've had, some of the knowledge that we've gained in the process of doing this. Accessibility is big, and I think it's just starting to become its own thing, and it's, people are becoming more and more aware of the need for internet information to be accessible to everybody. So one of the things that we found out is that many people with disabilities don't have access to the internet. It seems that most of the folks that we worked with that came to our focus groups, they brought their smartphones with them. Many of them do not have tablets or computers. So you're dealing with small screens where it's difficult to see and it's difficult to type accurately. We originally had a much longer URL, and helping people type that into a smartphone was very, very difficult. We might have spent 20 minutes out of an hour conversation with these folks trying to help them get the website to come up on their smartphones. An additional problem was that the bandwidth on the smartphones is very often limited, so downloading some of these resources, they're huge files, and if it didn't happen quickly, they got frustrated. For some folks, their reading and writing abilities may be a barrier to access as well, and as we found out, there's often a lack of training. The self-advocacy group that I went to on Tuesday, there were about 30 self-advocates in it, and I began the presentation by asking how many of you do have access to the internet, and I would say that only about 20 to 25% of them raised their hands. So there's a huge population out there that doesn't have access at all, either because they can't afford some kind of electronic device, or their families can't provide them with one. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons that this is the beginning of something that we think will grow as time goes on, but we're still in the early stages of making this kind of technology accessible for people. And then there have been some other challenges as well. We need somebody to host this website, because if we take it on, it becomes, a funding issue for us. Our project has an end. In the end, we hand off the website to DVPC. So who will host it? Who will keep it going? That requires funding. And who will keep it up to date? This morning I was, browsing around and found a broken link. So that happens all the time. Somebody takes a video off of YouTube and it's gone. Or an organization, you get that 404, can't find whatever you're looking for. So it requires tending. It's like a garden. You can't just plant it and, expect the fruit to show up at the market in 6 months or 8 months. We have to build some infrastructure that will make this a viable project, a viable resource for people over time. Another issue was photos. These photos were our stock photos that we purchased. I did a group in Troy, New York, and people very quickly picked up on the fact that most of the people with disabilities are white, and that there isn't a broad diversity of types of disabilities or of people with disabilities. So I have a friend who is a photographer, and I was telling her how we were struggling, and she said, and she was a photographer who would take photos and sell them to Getty, which is one of the big companies that sells stock photos. And she said, there's a couple unwritten rules that we are required to follow when we take photos for Getty. And she says, one of them is we don't show any aggression or violence in pictures, and we certainly don't show violence or aggression directed at people with disabilities. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And when it came to how difficult it was for us to kind of acquire pictures that communicated enough information without traumatizing people, we had some long discussions, is this too harsh? Is it too, is somebody going to be traumatized by this photograph? Or is it so soft and subtle that it doesn't communicate the information that we're trying to give to people? So I think, I don't know if it exists, but I would think that down in New York City, there's probably a modeling agency that has models with disabilities who are very diverse. And I think it would be fabulous if DDPC did a project where they supported the development of stock photos that would include people with disabilities, give them employment, and also make these photos available to society in general, so that this sense of people with disabilities are all part of us, not the special off to the side group of people. So that, I think we're evolving in that direction as well. And as you can see, the resources, they're not a lot. I think that, various groups that develop resources, videos, slideshows and things like that, I think that there's more that we can do along those lines. And so before you leave, we have a satisfaction survey to give to you, but I wanted to open up the floor. You can pass those out. Yeah, Amanda's gonna say that. So do you have any questions or comments? You've got just about half, 2/3 of the team here. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, during your literature review and your focus group study, have you come across that the issue of within group bullying or within group discrimination? Because there probably research need to be done that whether people with disability actually bullying the others.
Bullying each other?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
So perhaps that on the website, there should be an educational piece to inform them you should not bully your peers or your friends.
Yes. So we are limited to the resources that are in existence. So if it's out there, peer-to-peer abuse with people with disabilities, I don't know that we found it. If it's there, it might not be there. But yes, in our first research project, that was discussed, that people with disabilities bully each other, and that's the problem in some of the day programs or the work sites or the group homes that they live in. And very often the staff isn't well informed about the problem, and so they're not really sure how to manage a situation where people who live together are bullying one another.
Because it hurts more.
Pardon me?
It hurts more that, you're bullied by another person with a disability.
When someone whom you trust and whom you think is a friend violates that trust and treats you badly, it's very disturbing and distressing. It hurts. Any other questions about what we did or where we're going, Stephanie?
So I really like that the beginning of this project was actually going out and doing the survey and actually talking to people with disabilities to get their thoughts and opinions. Just briefly looking at the website, I think that's such a critical piece to the development of the website. But if I was someone that went on the website but I didn't come here, to list, I wouldn't know that this project and some of these ideas sort of initiated from talking to people with disabilities. I don't know if you had thought about putting that on the website as like how this started, or I know it's a lot. There's a lot on the website already. Obviously, you can only put so much on there. But did that come up at all in like discussion or anything like that?
We've had several people tell us that we need an about tab that gives the background and part of it, people say, well, who is this for? That question needs to be answered and it could be. One of the biggest challenges is not letting it get cluttered, and have too much stuff. I think that we need that. And that video that you only saw a short part of, that's gonna become another click on the homepage. So keeping it clear and noise-free, if you will, is part of that challenge of making it accessible. But I think context, it would help if there was a place in the website where we gave it some context. Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. Yes.
I would just like to second that. I think that's like a kind of a value of the disability movement, disability community, that it's done with us, not to us. And I think it'd be nice to highlight where the great information and the development of it, where it came from.
We've also, people have said they wish that there was, how there's an A to make the font bigger or smaller. That's very often on the homepage of a website. But again, it's one more thing to add to that page. And usually people can go up to view and they can, go out or go in, like I did when I pulled up that little leaflet from the UK. So, it's been a wonderful learning process, I think, for all of us. Amanda and I and Bree have worked on both of these projects and we've learned so much. And it's kind of, it's an organic thing. It needs to be tended so that it can continue to live. And I think that, it's kind of a circular process. People become more aware and then they develop more resources. And then, it's a back and forth circular kind of process. And I think we're just at the beginning phase or stage, if you will, of making information available to people with disabilities on the internet. There's a long ways to go. When only 20 or 25% of a room full of adult health advocates raise their hand and say they have access, that's a problem. And another thing that we learned was that Facebook is very often a site for peer-to-peer bullying, and that there's a tremendous amount of vulnerability for people with disabilities using Facebook. We did not link up with Facebook. There are a lot of Facebook pages for people with disabilities, but we did not include any of them because they're too risky. We're trying to help people and we don't want to send them to a website where they're going to experience more abuse. Okay, any other thoughts or ideas? Anybody know somebody who would be willing to take this project on and pay for a webmaster and pay for someone who would do the work of keeping the content current? I
mean, ideally, we would love to hand this off to a self-advocacy group that could take it on themselves, but again, that is a position where someone would want to be getting paid to maintain the website because it is such an undertaking. So that's one of our biggest challenges.
I think 10 to 15 hours a week is probably what somebody would need to spend. Is that, no, not that much? 10 hours?
Well, in the short term, Dave is we're gonna keep it for this year. And wonderful Dave is we're just gonna pay him hourly. And I said I thought it would be about 10 hours a month, but maybe that's
no,
way
under.
I know, Bree's had experience, kind of trying to keep a website up. Because you need two skill sets. You need one skill set to do the coding and checking on the links and everything, and then you need somebody who understands the disability world and abuse in the disability world, who knows what's out there by way of resources. And it's kind of every week you go on and you're looking for more and different and checking our website for links. So,
and I think as this takes off, the more people that become aware of it, the more correspondence it's going to start getting and people writing in. And just because I maintain another disability website where they just have a lot of questions and they want immediate answers. So the mailbox is always full, and I think that I could potentially see people getting the same response from this website.
We're not there now though, so we would like to have that problem actually of more people using it. And you saw the pop-up survey that came up. We're having an incredibly difficult time having people complete that. It's just like 4 or 5 questions. And we kind of need that for our evaluative purposes. But we can track how many people have visited this site, and it's about 850 unique users. But I think the last time I heard, we had 18 that actually gave us feedback on it. So that's a sort of, if you all can help us to spread the word about the website and also have people give us some feedback. I mean, I'd love to have the problem that we're getting so many questions about it and things that we can't keep up with it, and we can go to DDPC or others and say, okay, what's next for this? But we haven't had that problem yet, I'll have to say.
Have you worked with any of the governmental agencies to see if there's perhaps a way to get it either funded for upkeep or linked with them?
Which agencies? I mean, we worked with the DDPC.
I was thinking to myself, I'm going to one of my good friends is in the state legislature, and she just funded something for our Chickawaga, for kids with disabilities. And I was thinking maybe that's a path you could at least look at for funding or to link up, whether it's, somehow with the mental hygiene department, whether it's the governor's office, whether it's a state legislature. I thought this was fantastic. I'm from a different school here, but I came because I was interested as a son with autism, and I thought this was a fantastic resource.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, we definitely need to do more through our advisory council and through our work with the DDPC and others. We're connected to OPWDD and such. So I think it's been a little bit of a, we were sort of contracted to develop it. So we said to DDPC, here it is, and kind of thought that they would then kind of partner with people and do some of that work. And I think they're saying to us, what are you gonna do for sustainability? So we're in that sort of place where people wanna keep it going, but that's not, it's hard for us to know that the project ends in 2 weeks, and it's, where is it kind of going after that? That's why I just decided that we would do a shoestring. Let's kind of keep it going as we can here, but that's not a long-term solution. So I appreciate your, I think it'll take a combination of probably us and probably our partners at the DDPC to really.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering. I was like, it seems like it would be a project that would need some sort of ongoing home or funding. And if you're already working with them, I'm not sure. Just an interesting.
I've also been thinking about private sponsors, and on the section on access and equipment, machinery, for people with disabilities, those are for-profit companies. I mean, we're not advertising them in this, but we include that as an awareness component. Users with computers, and I even wondered if we could approach one of those companies that makes the equipment and says would you be willing to fund this, because indirectly they are benefiting from this website because we address the equipment that many people with disabilities need to have in order to participate in society. So. But it takes time, calling people and asking, and, it's not a quick, just cut you a check and here you go, and here's 10 years worth of funding to keep it all going and growing.
So if you had funding within the school, would you keep it within the school, or?
Yeah, I think if we could hire somebody for what I guess is, I had an underestimate, but maybe for 15 hours a week or something that could give it the attention, then sure, I don't think it would be an issue. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, well, thank you for coming and filling out the satisfaction survey, and I appreciate your feedback. That's very helpful. It's been, and will continue to be a conversation as we move forward. Okay, so thank you.
And we do have some flyers in back about our annual conference that is coming up in